Hey folks, thanks for tuning into the first episode. I'm your host, Joel Mungeon, and this series is really meant to be a conversation between musicians, songwriters, performers, and all-around creative people. So from time to time, I'll have my friends into my studio, and we'll talk about their creative habits and sort of what fulfills them as artists. I should mention up top that this podcast is kind of specifically dealing with people in the central Massachusetts area. So a few people from Worcester, a few people from Lowell, and a few people who are just in town visiting who I want to catch up with. My first guest is Ali Zagame. We used to play together in a folk duo called V and I, and it didn't last very long, but we are still best friends, so it made a lot of sense to have her on as my first guest. Right now, you're hearing her song Play for Blood. It's off her most recent release called Brutally Honest. It came out last year. You'll hear a little bit in this episode about her process for writing the new record, so check that out when it comes out. Check out Brutally Honest. And if you like what you hear, look up Ali Zagame on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you regularly get your music, and keep an eye out for her new record. Enjoy the show. Everything okay?
I can hear you so well.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I feel like I'm on the radio or something right now.
Isn't it fun?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like believing that we're on the radio. Oh, look at this.
You even got like a water right here.
Yeah.
It's like so professional.
Well, you're my guest. I'll take care of you.
I feel so respected.
So, Ali Zagame back in town.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How are those New York gigs going?
Pretty good. I would say the biggest difference between New York gigs and Massachusetts gigs, aside from New York people being a little bit more dead inside with it being New York City, definitely nice to be playing in places that are a little bit more, I don't want to say known, because it's not that Massachusetts places aren't known, but it feels really cool to be going, oh, you know, this is where Miles Davis was one day a long time ago, stuff like that, and you don't really get that vibe in Worcester, so that is pretty fun about it. That
more
is
like
cool.
Just being in a city where there's a lot of remaining presence of people you can kind of feel who was there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oddly, I don't get that at Ralph's Rock Diner.
Yeah. I can't say I did either. As much as I love it, I can't say, could be like, oh, Miles Davis played it right there. Not as much. You can't really.
Some pretty big names played at Ralph's, but
true.
Yeah, I don't feel it.
I don't remember who it was. I know it wasn't Metallica. Aerosmith, one of those big rock people. Their first gig was at my old high school, so I guess that might
have been Aerosmith.
Or something. I feel like it was Aerosmith.
They played a lot of like local, like this area, high schools.
Yeah.
Dances and proms, I'm sure. Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know if your awkward first slow dance and kiss with a girl, the band might get famous. It might be your worst night ever, but the band will be famous soon.
Yeah. Did you hear it? They found Aerosmith's old tour bus.
Oh my gosh, really?
In Western Mass. Like some guy had just like stashed it away in the woods. And
what?
They found it.
That's such a strange thing to find in the woods.
Yeah. I think it had broken down and they just like, well, we're done with this.
We don't need this. We're done. It's broken. We'll just abandon it in the woods because why not?
Yeah.
If it was all overgrown, that would have been cool though. I dig really overgrown, creepy things, so would have loved to see it all taken by the woods. Yeah, we could have gone, they should have left it there, and we could have gone on a creepy adventure.
Oh, yes. To go see it.
There used to be, behind my parents' house, there was like an old Volkswagen Beetle or something back there, and now it's like, oh, I want to go back. Maybe it's a Transformer or something. Like, you never know. Like, maybe it's going to be a Transformer. Maybe there's something magical in there. Because who just leaves a car in a ravine. Like, there's gotta be
Lots of people.
There's gotta be some treasure, though. I mean,
Maybe out in Blood Forest in Lancaster, there's a lot of old cars just ditched.
there's gotta be treasures, Joel.
Maybe.
Maybe they're just all
Maybe.
Transformers. They're all the aliens before the war that we don't know about or something.
When we were kids, we used to go out there and just like, I had this friend who always had beat up old cars, and he wasn't old enough to drive. He was like 13, 14, but he would like save up some money, buy a beat up old junker so we could drive around in the woods.
Because why not?
Because why not? And so we'd see like these other old cars and like old boats that were abandoned and stuff. And so later on, when I would go out and like hike out there and get lost, I'd happen upon this old boat and be like, oh, I know where I am.
This is how I know this old ancient boat is my landmark.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Exactly.
There's the word, it's like a Japanese word, kiri something. The more beautiful for having been broken. I want to believe that's my life. It's like the old cars and old buildings and Blood Forests and the places like that are, abandoned. I want to believe that's my life. Like all the crap, just more beautiful for having been such a broken, messed up person. That's life. More beautiful for having sucked, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But like they have a different definition of suffering, right? It doesn't have such a negative connotation. It's like more of a stronger for having been through it sort of thing.
Which, I mean, I think that expression, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, I think that's BS. I don't think that's true. I don't think that if something doesn't kill you, it's going to necessarily make you a better person or make you stronger, because then we wouldn't have evil people, because I think people that are jerks and evil people, whatever, murder, stuff like that, it's because of the things that made them that way to some extent. I mean, then you get into the whole nature versus nurture thing, but I don't think what doesn't kill you necessarily makes you stronger, but I do think what doesn't kill you, the struggles that you go through, shape you into who you're going to become. It's up to you if that's going to make you good or bad. Stronger either in your good values or your crappy values. It's up for you to decide. So,
I'm curious about the context of that quote, though, because that was a Nietzsche quote. I mean,
don't know the
he was a
context.
philosopher. It was probably in the context of some essay that he wrote. And I have no idea what it is, but now I'm curious.
That would be good to know, because it's been so twisted over the years.
And hammered into our collective psyche, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Be good to know the context of the million quotes that we have in our brain and conflicting ideologies, but be good to know context.
Yeah.
It's probably useful.
I think that philosophy kind of applies to your songwriting, because a lot of your songwriting is about suffering and about having been through it. How do you translate that into song, usually?
I don't immediately translate it into a song. That's the thing. When you're going through something really crappy, you don't always have the ability to look at it from a kind of third person perspective. You can't just be like, this is going to be good in the long run and this is going to affect me this way. No, you're in the middle of it. You can't be expected to be objective in any way. So I'd say that once I've been through something, and I do try and let it affect the good side of me, not let it make me more of a jerk. So I'd say that once I can establish, okay, maybe I shouldn't be as trusting, or maybe I should learn to trust people more, or whatever it might be. I think once I can get a good lesson out of whatever I go through, whether it's just things are going to be hard and you'll be okay, or wow, stuff can really suck sometimes, even if it's just that simple. Once you get the message of what you're going through, then you can break it apart in lyrics and something like that. But if you don't have a core message, then you don't really have a song, because otherwise it's not as cohesive for me, which is fine for some people. But I do want kind of a clear message to the songs I write, something that's a little bit like, whether it's from my early stuff from Speak Up, Speak Out, or the newer stuff that I'm writing, regardless of it, you can look at it and go, oh, okay. There's one lyric from a newer one, I am who I am despite you. So it's saying, despite all the crap, I'm still going to be me. I'm still going to be this person. I'm still going to be this way. So once I get a message, that's where I can put it into songs.
So you majored in vocal performance.
I did.
I have to imagine that along the way you might have taken a songwriting class or two.
Just a million. It felt like a million, that's for sure. It felt like a lot. The good thing about that major is it's a little bit more flexible than I thought it was going to be. They had a lot of electives, and I took every songwriting class that I could without basically just being a songwriting major.
Yeah.
So that was nice about it.
So how much do they drive that point home? Get a message first and then construct around the message?
It really depends on the teacher. I wouldn't say that they always said get a message, but maybe more know what you're going to write about. Okay. It wasn't you have to have this meaning of life in your songs, because no, then we wouldn't have modern music a lot of the time. Yeah. But I know especially for my lyric class, it's obviously your lyrics have to be cohesive. You can't just be writing about love in one sentence, writing about something else in the other, unless there's a connection, some kind of coherent statement. And so for most of my classes, it was give yourself some sort of theme, figure out your parameters, and it's okay if you figure it out after you start, but do give yourself just a little bit of a limit. And I do think that's important, not necessarily to restrict yourself, but just to know what is going to make sense to the people that are going to hear it.
So a lyrical limit.
I don't even want to say limit, because that doesn't feel like the right word, but just give yourself
parameters.
Yeah.
A little bit of a boundary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was pretty important when it came to lyric writing, just to kind of make sure that if you explain the beginning and you explain the end, that the stuff in between is going to connect the two, not just be, this is about a truck, and now it's about a dog, and now it's about, I don't know, those are just random topics. So yeah, that was pretty important when it came to lyric writing.
When I write, I usually come up with, it's about half and half. First I might write a riff, and then I had to write a melody to it. But the other half of the time is the better half of the time, because I'll come up with a lyric and a melody line at the same time.
Always good.
And go, okay, now I need to follow this structure, and I need to carry it out to the end of the song. So my question for you is, having taken those classes, how often does something kind of pop into your head that you can expand on, versus how often an idea pops into your head that you have to completely build from the ground up musically?
I'd say more often than not, it's an idea that I have to build up. It's pretty rare that I'll get a lyric and a melody and a chord at the same time, because I didn't grow up playing instruments except for the clarinet. And I didn't get into piano and guitar until I got into writing and singing. So for me, chords are secondary. It's not the first thing that's going to happen. So getting a melodic idea and chords is a lot rarer for me. Usually it'll be me getting inspired by a story, by something either in my own life or on a documentary or on Investigation Discovery or God knows what I'm watching, or something, some kind of idea. And I can really kind of sympathize with the person, or just what I'm going through from maybe an objective standpoint, and say, oh, this is so important to understand this emotion. And I will go from there with sitting down at the piano or sitting down with my guitar, ukulele, whatever the heck, and just say, okay, let's sit with it, feel the emotion. And it takes a little bit to get into it too, which I don't think a lot of people might know, is it's not just, I'm just going to instantly write down and feel this emotion. Like, you kind of got to sit with it. You got to think about it a little bit. And I'll play and say, this feels what I'm feeling. This instrument feels what I'm feeling right now. And kind of get into that. Maybe write a little riff, a little line. From normal it's like dun dun dun. Just things like that feel like what I'm feeling, that sound like what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And I'll just keep going from there and let it build on itself, lyric-wise.
How would you say that your songwriting has evolved? in the past few years?
I'd like to think it's involved a lot.
You've been on a big journey.
I have.
You went from an EP to a full length, and now you're writing a new full length. So
Yeah.
there have to be a lot of maybe structural differences, maybe melodic differences.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's true. I'd say in the beginning, I gave myself no boundaries, which it's a good and bad thing.
Yeah.
I just kind of said, okay, I'm just going to write whatever I feel, whatever nonsense comes out. And the chords, they're still pretty basic. I still have a lot of 4-chord songs. But it was very much, here's 3 chords. These sound good. Let's just repeat them on loop and just spout whatever comes out of my mouth on top of it. And I wouldn't say that's bad. I think that's how a lot of people start. But that's definitely how I started. And I'd say it's evolved because I know myself a bit more. And rather than just telling stories with sounds, now it's, okay, I want to tell this message and I want to make it so that my listener hears it. It's not just for me anymore, is I guess the best way I can sum all this up.
Yeah.
It's not just for me anymore, whereas a lot of my earlier stuff was me venting my emotions, loving songwriting because it let me get everything out. And now it's, okay, let me present to the world, this is how I got through something. Here is something that may help you, rather than here's my emotions on a disc. So definitely a bit different, but I'd say there's still a lot of similarities in what I do. There's still plenty of growing left to do.
It's interesting to me that you got to that place because I don't feel like that's where you were when we met.
Yeah. And we haven't even known each other all that long either. So
No.
I think in the last 2 years I've done a lot of growing, even though I haven't done my most songwriting in these past 2 years either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to do my most songwriting when I was in school, obviously, because I had, 3 classes at a time that were going, hey, give me 1 new song a week. I won't lie. There was some copy pasting there. There was some, I used this song last week, but I can use it for this. There was some of that. I'm not going to lie. But even though I did my most songwriting then, I had to write those however many 100 horrible songs until I could kind of find who I was. And now when I sit down, the chances of me writing an unusable song are less. So I think that's where that comes from.
Well, we met in a weird way.
We did.
We met over Craigslist.
We did.
I was really, really, really into folk music at the time, and I still am, but I was kind of like just starting kind of a new, more evolved phase than I had been in the past. And I really just had a lot of just restless energy that I needed to put into writing arrangements and doing whatever. So you came along and we wrote some arrangements together and we played some folk songs for a few months and
we did.
Didn't really start. Didn't really go anywhere, but it was, we kind of had a little bit of personal disagreements just about kind of, if you could say that we had a mission statement, we couldn't really agree on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't even so much I didn't like what we were doing. It wasn't that. It was more of I want to go and see new things and do more things. I was really pursuing it because that was what I really wanted to do, like, full time. Whereas, you had a job and I was like, no, I'm just teaching music and want to do this forever. So I went out there with my band though, and I gigged more with my band, and that was what I needed at that time. I just needed to be running all over the place like a chicken with my head cut off, and that was what was needed for me at the time. So I
got a feeling from you back then, and feel free to disagree, but I feel like
no problem. Go for it. You're probably not wrong.
I feel like I'm not wrong. I feel like you had just graduated from Berkeley, and you needed to just kind of find a lot of projects and be very restless and be...
Oh, that's not wrong at all. Yeah. No, I would not dare disagree with that.
There were times when I felt like I was sort of... I felt like we were disagreeing on the direction we were going because I didn't feel like I was like able to be a part of your career.
I can understand that.
You were trying to make it a career and I wasn't really.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When you have somebody that's a career musician and somebody who loves playing out, but it's not their life. It's their passion and they love it, but it's not their life. It's not always going to work. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, obviously, we're still great friends and I still love playing with you when I do. But definitely I had those issues before where it's just, you know, I've collabed with people in New York and in Boston and things like that. And when it's somebody's passion, they're not going to take it as seriously as you, or they're not going to want to go as far with it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it wasn't like we fought about it in like an angry way or anything. Because you just have to respect that about the person. Just say, hey, you know, they might love this, but it isn't their life. And for you, it's your life. So you can't expect that of somebody else. You just have to say, okay, you know what? This person doesn't want to go that far with it. That's fine. I can either chill back and just do it with them for fun and respect that this is for fun, or not. And I mean, that's fine. It's just a matter of you got to respect other people.
I feel like there could have been some middle ground had we gone a little bit farther. Because I wasn't just doing it for fun. I was doing it completely in earnest, and I felt like I had a lot of great things to offer musically and lyrically. And that was when I kind of first, it wasn't when I first started, but it was when I first really was being somewhat prolific. I wasn't writing a lot, but I was writing a lot of arrangements. And what lyrics I was writing then were being written in like the traditional form and using more modern ideas and modern metaphor to kind of embrace the traditional form and to try to get that going. And my vision back then was I wanted to kind of find out where the good acoustic spots were within a certain radius of where we lived.
But I was like, nope, let's move to New York.
Yeah. Well, you were trying to get me to gig in Boston more.
I wanted to do bigger things.
Because I see Boston as a more competitive scene.
Which
and I was
it
like,
is.
I'm
There's
not
no
in this
that.
to compete.
Yeah.
I want to present what I feel is like my strongest art to date.
Yeah.
But I don't want to compete to do it. I don't want to have to raise my voice over a big crowd. I don't want to have to like travel a lot and lug a bunch of gear around. I just want to put on very simple acoustic shows. And I feel like there's more of those opportunities around than I know about.
Yeah. Whereas I'm like,
a smaller radius.
Get my name out there. I want to be seen, want to be heard, want to do a million things. And
Yeah. And I understood that that's what you wanted to do, but I also kind of had just a little bit of a hesitation to like follow you into it.
Oh, absolutely. And I can't blame you for that. I mean, I do still love folk. I do love folk. I loved what we were doing. It's definitely not my long-term genre because of that. Because as much as I do love acoustic, I don't necessarily write acoustic anymore either. That's the thing. As much as I love my guitar vocal and my piano vocal stuff, and I still do write on my piano and on my guitar originally, I always am going, okay, I want the drums to come in and do this kind of thing, and then the big sounds and stuff like that. So I need those stages.
That's how things sound in my head when I'm writing. But that's not
give me how it sounds in your head.
And I can't make those things manifest on a recording because I'm just one person, and
there we go.
I just don't have the technology.
Not just one person. You are one person. You are one awesome person with your guitar.
One person.
Don't you add that just make it seem smaller than it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a weird time.
It was a weird time. I felt so strange, like graduating and then going on, what am I doing out in the world? Yeah. What's happened?
Yeah, but you had a lot of other stuff going on back then. I
did. I feel like I have a lot more and a lot less going on now.
We have a lot more permanent stuff going on now.
Yeah.
As opposed to back then, you were always like...
I have a million different things, and none of them are certain.
You could only rehearse for like a few hours, and then you were going to go like play drums in some guy's basement.
Yeah, I know, right? Hey, I was practicing at Brainy's place and learning, and did that all the time. And oh man, I had so many weird things.
Yeah.
I don't regret any of them, though.
But we did become fast friends.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. I think the first time we hung out, you like asked me for pretty serious mom advice.
I think so too. I was going through like such a crappy time. I think when we first met, I feel like I was in an argument with my mom or something. I'm like, what do I do? Like it was a wreck. Feel like I did it. That, I mean, sounds like me regardless. Even if I didn't, wouldn't put it past me.
And luckily at the time I was feeling great. I had all this great new energy.
It would have been terrible if you're like, shut up, I don't know.
I had a super amount of productivity in me for some reason. It just happened.
I hate it when those times fade, though. Oh my gosh. When you're so productive, you get so much done, and then 6 months go by after that, and you go, oh my God, I've done nothing.
It faded. It lasted a while.
Yeah.
But it lasted a while because I then sort of calmed down on the music, on the writing anyway, and went straight into going back to school, and I was studying poetry. I was studying W.B. Yeats and writing a lot about art and about poetry in ways that sort of reaffirmed the new poetic philosophy that I had embraced. And then right at the end of that school year was when I graduated and I started focusing a lot on putting on shows. So in a way, it hasn't died.
Still isn't dead.
It's still, that energy is still kind of simmering a little bit, but just not, I'm not as prolific. I'm not as like, I don't have as much energy.
Yeah.
To go out and do as much as I was doing.
So old, so fast, Joel. So old.
Well, I have all the energy in the world to put on shows.
Yeah.
There's a huge benefit, I think, to just being in demand, because that gives you energy, that validates you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would be nice to be more in demand.
Well, in New York, that's a big
ask. It's a big ask.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely true.
What was your favorite traditional song that we played?
Worlds Below.
That's not traditional. That's me. That's mine.
It doesn't count though, even though it had kind of a traditional form.
It counts.
That's the thing. That's the one I remember most.
Okay.
Even though I know it was yours, it wasn't like a cover. It wasn't anything like that. That one will just always be my favorite. Okay. That one will always be my favorite because I love the story of that one. I'm sorry, that's not a real answer, but that one's just my favorite.
No, because I remember you not liking a few of them.
There were a couple I definitely was like, but Worlds Below will always just be my favorite that we ever did. Always.
You weren't that into Let No Man Steal Your Time.
I didn't dislike it.
It's a slow song. We played it very slowly, and there wasn't a lot to it.
Yeah.
It's a repeated melody. There's not really a build-up at all. There's not much excitement.
Plus, I'm not one for puns.
Yeah.
And that whole title and the whole song is just like a giant pun. And I just always kind of hated puns because my ex loves puns. And I'm like, this is just one giant pun. Written with H on time.
Yeah.
Let no man steal your herbs, ladies.
Ryan and I just did a song. It's not a pun, but it's Wild Mountain Thyme, actually talking about the plant.
Okay, I can respect that.
Yeah.
That's not a pun.
Apparently, Ed Sheeran did a version of it.
Oh.
He comes to my house
you
and he's
coming
like,
for him? That's bold.
Ryan comes to my house and he's like, so I got this new song that we should play. And I'm like, okay, cool. And we recorded it. We actually shot a music video upstairs.
Oh, dang, nice.
So he comes over and we like write our own little arrangement for this thing. Like we get into an open tuning and do our whole thing. And when Ryan and I get together, we harness some ancient power. And when we play together.
What a phrasing. We harness ancient power whenever we hang out. What about you?
Yeah.
Are you harnessing ancient power with your friends?
No, it's whenever we play traditional songs. Whenever we get together and like one of us has arranged something, we're like, okay, we know what this needs. He referred to it that way. He said like we kind of, there's something like ancestral happens.
Want to witness that?
Our eyes start to glow a little bit and like
just beards grow long and white.
Mm-hmm. But he had the lyrics up on his tablet and I couldn't see them because he was singing. And then I got up after we finished recording and I walk by his screen and I'm like, Ryan, is this an Ed Sheeran song?
Oh God.
He's like, I guess he did a version. I'm reading his lyrics. It's fine.
I
Whatever.
guess he did a version. I can't get that image out of my head.
That would be actually a pretty good music video idea.
It'd be a great album cover. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Heck yes.
I'm asking you what was your favorite because I want to know what you want to play on the show tonight.
Ooh, like here and now.
We're recording something. And we can do Worlds Below if you want to.
I mean, I love Worlds Below.
I own it, so we can do it.
There
or
we
we can do
go.
a traditional that nobody owns.
I feel like I'm going to mess up Worlds Below. I haven't sung that in so long now. What are all of the options?
What did we do?
I don't remember.
What did we do that was
set
traditional?
list.
There was Let No Man Steal Your Time, of
Yeah.
course. There was 500 Miles, which
500 Miles was always our starter.
that was always our strongest performance.
Definitely.
I think.
That might be nice too. Well, how about you choose then between Worlds Below and 500 Miles?
And 500 Miles. Okay. I'm not going to choose right now. We'll think about it.
All right.
After we stop.
Keep the listeners guessing.
Yeah. What else did I want to
which
ask
one
you
are we
about?
going to choose, listeners? You'll find out. Oh, keep listening. Okay.
I was thinking about this earlier. I don't think I've ever asked you who your songwriting influences have been over the years.
That is a good question.
I don't know that about you.
I have 3 very big influences. Not none of them. 2 of them are not very well known. One of them is. I'll start with the one that is, and that's Regina Spektor.
Soviet kitsch.
You know, Regina Spektor. I wouldn't say that my more recent stuff has been influenced by her.
Yeah.
You don't really hear her as much in my newer stuff, but I was definitely influenced by her in the beginning. The way that she plays with form is really interesting. I really love her voice too, and the lyrics make you think. No one laughs at God in a hospital. No one laughs at God in a war, but God can be funny. You know, like those things you wouldn't think about. Not all about romance. I feel like I'm not doing her any justice, but I definitely adore her. She gave me a lot of hope because some of my other influences may not be as well known. You know, I wasn't ever really influenced by like the Taylor Swifts and Ariana Grandes or Britney Spears and people like that. But Regina Spektor is a fairly big name, and so I thought, okay, you know, there is a demand for this music out there. It might not be huge, but there is a market for it. This is valuable. And I think for a while when I was first starting, and my stuff has gotten more marketable since, I've learned a little bit how to make my own stories more relatable. Mm-hmm. But when I was struggling to do that, I thought, oh, this is valueless because people can't relate to it. But some of her stuff might be very difficult to relate to, and it still has value. And her popularity did kind of teach me that. And as much as people will say, well, oh, it's not about the money and it's not about her popularity, it's not about numbers. It's like, well, when you want a music as a career, it can be, and it does give you hope when you see there's a demand. So definitely her. My other 2, I'll go to Sanders Bulkey. I don't know if he's so much a songwriting influence as much just sheer influence, because when I was 14, 15, all I'd ever heard was trashy pop and music theater. And that was it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's pretty true for a lot of people my age and our age and who grew up like that before, you know, YouTube was as huge as it is now. So all I knew was the plays that I was in and what was popular. Mm-hmm. That was pretty much it. And I didn't like either of that music. As much as I did like being a part of the plays, it's not like I want to listen to show tunes all day long. There's very few people who want to listen to show tunes all day long. And the first song I ever found that I went, wow, this exists. Oh my gosh, this is a sound I've been looking for, that I love, that I identify with, was a Sanders Bulkey song called Weight of Us. First one I ever discovered that I'm going, oh my gosh, this is what I'm feeling. This is really cool. So him for sure. And last is Soleil.
That's who did I'll Drown.
Yeah, that's who did I'll
Okay.
Drown.
Yeah.
Icelandic artist. And she also just does really cool stuff with sound. And her lyrics are very simple because she is Icelandic, so a lot of the lyrics might not be, you know, crazy complicated English words, but it's just very, I drown when I see you. But that's not something that I've ever heard anybody here say. It's almost kind of a lost in translation lyric, if that makes sense. It's something when maybe that might make sense in Icelandic, I don't know. But when you hear people who aren't native English speakers speak, sometimes they say things that are really interesting. And some of her songs are that way. I'll drown when I see you, you know, things like that. And that definitely inspired me with lyrics a little bit, just to think outside the box, to mess with words, just play with words, play with sounds.
Yeah. So you're about to go into the studio, or soon, maybe not about to.
Yeah, I'm hoping soon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know yet.
Is the whole thing written yet?
The whole thing is written. I have written the whole second album, and I've talked to the label that I'll be working with. Hopefully. I think so. You know, we're going to talk at the beginning of the year. You know, a few days, really. I haven't had an album sponsored before, so I don't really know how long it takes for them to get you that studio time, but I'd imagine they'd want it sooner as opposed to later. I can't imagine they'd be like, all right, next year you'll be doing this.
In this area now, and maybe it's just particularly with the people that I know, it feels like there's kind of some pressure to embrace the DIY culture, the DIY lifestyle as an artist.
Yeah.
Do you feel that in New York? Is there more of that kind of culture in New York? More people self-producing, more people self-promoting shows and things like that?
I wouldn't say it's as much self-producing, but definitely there is a large pressure to be independent, for sure. I don't really know that many artists that entirely do their own thing and don't collab. The collaboration is still very big in New York, from what I've seen anyway, because getting anywhere on your own is hard. And it's not doable, but it's absolutely hard. And so when you're getting your stuff out, especially to a huge mass of people, like in New York, it is important to have somebody who has your back, to have somebody else, to have another voice, just any other person, really. So I wouldn't say it's do it all on your own, but there's definitely the pressure to have more. If you say, I sing, great, what else? You can't just sing anymore. You can't just sing. You have to sing. You have to songwrite. You have to play an instrument. You have to know the basics of recording. And when I first went to Berkeley, I sung. Nothing more. Then I learned songwriting. Then I had an internship and learned basics of recording and, you know, Logic and Pro Tools and whatever. And then it's okay. Now you really got to work on your guitar skills and your piano skills and bass and drums and everything. There's definitely a pressure to know everything, because there are people out there who truly know and can do it all. So if you can't measure up to them, then we'll just go with them, you know? So absolutely. There is a pressure to be independent, to do it all yourself, for DIY. But I wouldn't say it's put on your own shows, because unlike Massachusetts with New York, there's so many people that one voice is going to get lost in the crowd. You got to have a lot. Right.
That's kind of why I've been focusing more on performing lately. Like, I write when things come to me, but I'm not competing for stage time. I'm trying to work hard and trying to be nice and trying to embrace... New
Yorkers aren't trying to be nice.
No.
No. That's a big difference.
But I'm just trying to embrace, like, whatever community is being established that is welcoming to folk music and whatever kind of scene I want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And, you know, a byproduct of that is that you try to serve the scene and you try to just be the best performer that you can for the sake of the people that are going to be a part of that community. And so that's kind of where I'm at now, you know.
I think that's a good place to be.
And on top of that, the DIY lifestyle it's serving me well, particularly because other people are a part of that culture and they kind of know where you're at artistically.
Yeah.
You know, they know that you're not really in a competitive mindset when it comes to performing or getting your music out there. And they know what sort of restrictions and limitations there probably are on your recording process and on your booking process. And there's a really supportive scene out there.
That's the thing. You're building a community. And that's what's great about places like this is it's a community.
Right.
Whereas with its New York City, I can't name you more than a few artists. It's not as much a community. It really is a competition. And that's unfortunate. I would like more collab and I would like more of a community feel, but you can't get that with millions of people living in one city. That's asking a lot. That's very difficult. Yeah. So a little close-knit community music scene, it's rarer. Mm-hmm. And there are communities within themselves. There's a really great community at the New Eurekan for poets that I've found. And there is like a little great community of an open mic in Staten Island and things like that. But a lot of that is open mics. Whereas when it comes to gigs and getting your name out there, it's not really a community. It is a competition. Yeah, exactly. It is. Yeah. And I don't want to say I'm competing because I don't think that it's healthy to really see it as a competition.
Well, you start being too hard on yourself.
Yeah, it isn't. Yeah. It isn't necessarily healthy to compare yourself to anyone but yourself. Compare yourself to how you've grown, where you've been. And it is okay to say, oh, I want to be a little bit more like this person and, be inspired by it. But when you're saying, oh my gosh, this is a child prodigy and I'm not like them. It's like, well, no, but that's not healthy. Yeah. So I try and keep it as I'm doing the best that I am. I'm focusing on me. I'm focusing on my craft, how I can be as good as I can. And if I do well, great. But I don't want to be looking at other people going, I have to be better or they have to be worse. It's about do the best that you can. And in this scene, it's nice that you can do that with others. Yeah.
So do you feel, I'm not sure how to phrase this question. I'll give my own personal example and then I'll probably build up to how to phrase it to you. Yeah. My own personal example is I see a lot of people who are playing tons of shows, but they're playing folk punk, which is definitely not my style of performing or writing. No. And I just feel much more comfortable creating my own soundscape and creating my own sort of sonic image of how I want a song to sound and how I want my guitar to be played. So that was the thing about Let No Man Steal Your Time. It was fun to play for me, but it was boring for you to sing.
Sorry. Sorry.
It's fine. Okay, so I guess what I'm asking you is, do you tend to feel that way with, you just said that you can't name a ton of New York singer-songwriters that are your peers, but as far as the genre that you're writing for goes, do you feel any pressure to live up to your predecessors, or do you feel any pressure to live up to your peers, or are there other people doing what you're doing for that genre?
As bad as this is going to sound, it depends on the day. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I'm sure there are some songs I have that people can go, oh my God, this sounds exactly like this person. Sure. But I think the way to avoid getting in that trap is to not be like other people as best you can. Yeah. Because there are definitely... there's no way to be 1,000% unique. Someone has already written those chords. Someone has already thought that line. Someone has already named a song that title. That's fine. You don't have to be 100% original to be valued. I mean, I'm not saying rip people off, but you know what I mean. Nothing is ever 100% original anymore. Everything is derivative in some way, really. And so I definitely feel pressure to be the next Regina Spektor, to be the next Ariana Grande, to be the next Taylor Swift, to be somebody. I wouldn't even pinpoint it on, oh my gosh, I have to be this other New Yorker who made it. Okay. But just to be big, to be, oh, you want to see your name up in lights or whatever it might be. So there is very much a consistent pressure to make it. And whether that's make a living as a musician or whether that's be a millionaire as a musician, there is always that kind of, well, if you can't make this into a profession, you failed. Right. And it devalues what you put out there for yourself. And that doesn't mean what you put out there is valueless just because it didn't make you a living. But I think a lot of artists can be discouraged where if they don't see what they're creating making money, then they think, it's not worth anything. Nobody's paying for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is that. And that's probably why so many creative people that you see, it's like, the depression, the sadness, the whatever, where writing sad things going, oh my gosh, am I ever going to make it?
But talking about
is that.
Talking about being better than your former self and growing and writing from pain and learning to evolve from that will always have personal value.
Absolutely. It always should.
I've actually always been kind of curious because there's sort of a value disparity here, or there could be, depending on what your answer to this question is. Majoring in vocal performance, I imagine it's a very competitive major. I imagine they teach you to be prepared for competition.
Oh, yeah.
How do you sort of reconcile the value that is assigned to your work and your performance based on that competition with the personal value that you get out of writing and performing your own songs?
Oh, that's hard. So it's kind of, how do I differentiate between the value as a whole versus the value to me?
I guess what brings you more fulfillment?
What brings me more... Okay, gotcha.
And actually, the B side of that question is, did you have to learn to feel fulfillment?
Yeah.
Personal fulfillment rather than professional fulfillment.
Yeah. I would definitely say yes to that B side. I won't lie. I think any performer out there is going to feel like, oh, wow, this is worth something in value when they get all those views or listens or buys or whatever it is. So I think that initially it was very much, okay, if I am not in the showcase, if I'm not in the showcase, or if my song isn't picked for ABC, if I don't win a competition with my song, then you think, well, this song isn't worth anything. I got to go write another. And there can be a lot of people that get stuck in that, which it might end up working out. You might make it, but if you don't, then it's really hard to get unstuck from that. So at first, absolutely. Very discouraged, thinking, okay, this song isn't worth anything. It's not making me any money. It's not going to go anywhere. But there was actually, I was stuck in that for a while, but there was actually this one young woman who sent me a message, and I had written a song about sexual assault, and she messaged me, and she said, look, I know you don't know me at all, but my father sexually assaulted me, and I heard your song, and it made me want to do something about it. What should I do?
Wow.
And it was insane. And I remember being at an extremely low point in my life when I got that message, just because, I was not only dealing with the sexual assault, but then I put the song out there. I put my soul out there. It wasn't that it was rejected, but it wasn't widely accepted or anything. I felt like all my songs aren't getting notoriety. Nothing's getting noticed. Not going to make it. I'm 19 and I'm old. You think you're old when you're 19, going, oh my God, I'm not going to make it. That kind of thing. And so I just sent her a message, and she's like, I want to do something about it, blah, blah, blah. And she's just asking me for advice. Just this young woman, I don't know at all. There's this teenager, you made me feel better about it. And I will never forget that moment, because as cheesy as it is, and as much as you hear it, if this can help one person, it's worth it. Yeah. And that might be a very overused line in today's world, and you might think, oh, that isn't true. Some people say that, but they don't really believe it. But I really do believe that if you can just say, if this helped people at all, if this helped anybody get through anything, then it was worth it. And that helped me value my own work. And maybe it isn't right to depend on other people, but you know what? That helped me a lot, just for somebody to say, this made a difference in my life. This song might only have 100 listens. It might have 2. But if it really helped those 2 people who listened, wasn't it worth it for you to put it out there?
Of course it was.
Exactly. Yeah. So even if you only get 1 listen, what if it changed that one person's life? You never know. So that's definitely helped me a lot to just get that value. And if I'm personally writing something and thinking, this is trash, well, you know what? You can throw it away and you can move on to the next one. Or you can say, let me find, this helped me write this.
Yeah.
This might only be for me, but it helped me get through something. And doesn't that count for something in and of itself?
Of course.
So that's what's helped me most.
I think some of the most successful, emotionally successful songs are the ones that, if it helps you battle something, I think it's bound to help somebody else. If they hear it at the right time when they need to, then, you put that emotional battle into it. And if they're feeling the same thing.
I mean, that's the thing. If you can be honest with yourself when you sit down and write something, chances are somebody's feeling what you're feeling. And it might not be for the exact same reasons, of course, but somebody's probably feeling the lowness that you're feeling, or maybe the happiness that you're feeling. Then not a lot of my songs are happy. But somebody's probably feeling what you're feeling. If they hear it, might help them get through it too.
We used to say that when we died, we'd die with fearless hearts and march over the graves of our favorite patriarchs. We used to say that when we lost, we'd lose with home in mind and hide away like highwaymen on roads that won't unwind. But so few of us know how the lamps burn low. We used to know how long the guards would stand to keep us out, till all the sleeping queens of the city learned to shout. We used to know where beggars roamed and what it was they sold, and how to keep the secrets of